right. And who's seconding that?
Can you hear me?
Second.
Oh, one
Yeah.
second.
Melissa, we can hear you.
Oh, you can? Sorry. I'm using a new computer.
Did somebody second that?
Second, Alderman Ruth Simmons, second.
All right, and now we have to call the roll.
Alderman Fisk.
What is that?
Here.
Noise?
I'm here.
The vote is for the suspension of the rules.
Yes, all right.
Okay, I'll move on. Alderman Nguyen.
Here.
Okay, just want to remind everybody, this is for suspension of the rules, not to take attendance.
Okay. Yes, then.
All right, Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Suffredin.
Aye.
Alderman Ravel.
Aye.
And Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes.
Thank you very much. All right, first item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of the regular Planning and Development committee meeting of July 13. I move approval. Any second? Okay. Any discussion or changes? No, hearing none. Would you call the roll, please?
Alderman Fisk.
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Suffredin.
Aye.
Alderman Ravel. And Alderman Rainey.
Aye. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is public comment. Ms. Neiden, do we have anybody speak to us? No. You are muted.
I'm sorry. Not that I can tell. Luke,
Yeah,
you haven't seen anyone signed up?
Not to my knowledge, not for P&D.
All right, there's some background noise going on, so when you're not speaking, could you please mute yourself? Thank you. All right, first item, or the only item we have on our agenda is approval of the renewal funding to administer the inclusionary housing wait list. Housing and Homeless Commission and staff recommend approval of $40,000 for community partners for affordable housing to continue administering the Evanston's inclusionary housing ordinance, centralized wait lists, and conduct income certification and recertification of households for inclusionary units for the period of May 1, 2020 through December 31, 2021. Funding source is the city's Affordable Housing Fund. $30,000 has been budgeted for the waitlist management for 2020. Additional funds, et cetera, will be included next year. Could I have a motion to approve?
I move approval.
Is there a second? Is there a second? Okay, there's a second. Alderman Nguyen waved her hand. Is there a discussion?
Yes.
Alderman Simmons.
Thank you. I didn't see it in the packet and I may have overlooked it. How many on average do we have on our wait list? What sort of wait list? What's the volume or capacity that they're managing? $40,000 a year. It seems like, maybe one job function of a program coordinator level person. So could you explain what might be involved in management of this list?
Ms.
Alderman
Flack.
Simmons, we actually have a presentation if you'd like us to give the presentation with
yes,
some of this information in it.
Yes.
I would love that. Thank you.
Sarah, would you like to present?
Thank you. And I'm going to ask Luke to actually run the slides for me because when I imported them into Google Drive, they kind of went crazy. Also, I wanted to let you know that I have Amy Kaufman, who is the Director of Development and Community Relations at SEPA, and who has worked with us on the waitlist from the very start to answer any questions after the presentation or during the presentation, if that's what you choose. Again, Sarah Flax, Housing and Grants Manager. Thank you, Alderman Rainey and members of the committee. So this is going to be a brief update on the inclusionary housing ordinance and the wait list. Next slide. So the inclusionary housing ordinance purpose is to expand the supply of affordable units and reduce economic segregation by integrating affordability into market rate developments. One of the other important things is these units are developed without a direct financial subsidy from the city through the requirements of the inclusionary housing ordinance. And most of the IHO units, just so that people know, are serving households between 50 and 80% of the area median income. Next slide. The waitlist purpose is to ensure that eligible households get the inclusionary housing ordinance units, including their incomes are properly certified and recertified, to allow us a local preference. So we are able to give preference to people who currently live in Evanston, have lived in Evanston, and still have that whoever the family connection is in Evanston. So this helps with children coming back or somebody who's moved out of Evanston and wants to be able to come back. And also people who work here, because that's another goal, which is to have people who work in Evanston able to live in Evanston. Really important is this centralized wait list reduces the burden for people who are seeking affordable housing, because they're on a list, their needs are known, and they get contacted when a unit comes up in the order that they're on the list. So it's sequential based on when people apply, but at the same time with the local preference. But rather than somebody having to watch every single thing we do and say when a unit is available or going to be coming available, they get reached out to when a unit comes up that matches their needs. It also reduces the compliance burden for property managers. They are very happy to hear that we have a wait list, and we'll get to the size of it, and that we will help by doing the income certifications. So it really provides a single point of contact for the housing seekers and the providers that really helps expedite and make the whole process run more smoothly. So how the wait list works: pre-application date determines where the person's position or the household's position on the wait list. And with the local preference that we already talked about. The other thing that's a little different from some wait lists is if you come up for a unit and it's, looks like it's the right size and the right income level, but you're just in a position that you're not ready to consider moving because you might be in the middle of a lease or something like that. You can say, I'm going to take a pass without losing your place on the list. And that's not necessarily common in a lot of other wait lists. If somebody is income certified and declines two units in a row, then they will get moved to the bottom of the list, but they're not removed. The list is updated annually to confirm people's household income and household size hasn't changed, and also that they're still interested in being on the wait list. And that's another thing, because if you're in many situations, if you're on a list and somebody else moves into your house, it might be a parent who's retired, you might have a new child. They would say, okay, now you got to go on another list and you're at the bottom. So that puts people out of place where they were. Next slide, please. So right now we have 305 households on the wait list. 199 of those were added since March 1st of 2019, which was when our last update was. And almost half, 48% of those, qualify for our local preference. Next slide. Here's a sample, and this is kind of an eye chart, but this gives you an idea of the type of detail we're providing in the report. We're breaking down information in ways that we worked with the Housing and Homelessness Commission, who wanted to have better sort of information about what was going on with the wait list and how it was working for us. So this was why we developed this. So we break down the households on the wait list by size and income level. And then we show that as a percentage. So you can see, for example, that when we have a lot of households, they're households of one, quite a lot more who are less, but still quite a lot of households that are households of 2, and 3, 4, 5. So there's a declining. You can really see that small households are predominant, And you can also see where people's income falls. Now, we don't have a lot of people on the list who are much below, these are all self-reported income. So we give some leeway. You don't want to rule somebody out based on an absolute number, unlike when you're actually doing final income certifications, because when somebody comes up on the list, then they get income certified. And you would hate to say, well, this person estimates their income at this dollar amount, so it's $5 over, so we won't put them on the list. So we try to be inclusive rather than exclusive on the actual wait list. Next slide, please. And so there are charts that are in actually your report, but here's some other demographics of who's on the wait list. As I mentioned, we have an awful lot of households of one and two person households, as you can see, 68%. Households of 3, 16%, and then households of 4, 8%, and 5 or more, another 8%. And when you look at the income, the majority of the household's self-reported income is between 31% and 50% of area median. And you can see the other mixes there. Now, again, this is self-reported income, and it doesn't always turn out to be their income when they're actually income qualified. Next slide. How does that match, or how does that relate to the units that we have? Well, our units are a mix. The bulk of our units are within the 51 to 60% of area median. That's the focus of the inclusionary housing ordinance. There are some that were in the existing units from the first revision to the inclusionary housing ordinance, when we had 50, 60, and 80% of area median units. So that's why you see a change. The current inclusionary housing ordinance puts units at 60% in rental. And then we have a few that are up to 80%, and we have a couple that are above that were actually from planned developments that were negotiated before and weren't really part of the inclusionary housing ordinance. Next slide. We do have a few of those units because, again, these were development agreements, planned developments before the IHO was effective for getting rental units. And the developers very much appreciate having us do the income certs and take care of all the compliance. So 31 of our 40 existing units are restricted for households that are at or below 60% of the area median. So we really are serving a population need. As I mentioned, the list does include rent-restricted units from non-IHO developments, including a handful of things like when the ZBA approved a third unit to be added to a two-flat that they didn't really have quite all the requirements. It was okay if you have an affordable unit for 10 years. So it allows us to help small developers who are providing some of that closer to naturally occurring affordable housing too. Next slide. Learnings from the wait list. It really lets us look at the demand based on who's on the wait list, and we can look at the progress of addressing those needs and assess any mismatches. And that also allows us to, as new buildings come up or new units are coming up, it allows us to work to expand the wait list for certain types of demographics. An example is when Amador came up, 55 plus. So one of the things that SEPA did was they put a question in the wait list. If you want to say you are looking for units for a 55 plus age range, you can let them know that, which helps them prioritize for make sure that we have people in the pipeline. The other thing that we are tracking is the turnover. And one of the things that I really think is noteworthy is of the units that have been rented up through the wait list, and some of them go back 3 years. They've had 2 lease renewals. we have had only 1 unit turnover. So that shows we are providing stability to people who have incomes below our median and who need help getting housing. And we also provide stability for the developers. They don't want churn in their units. And so that's a good thing to be able to show them. So the funding request is for $40,000 for a 20-month contract. So it's really comes out to $2,000 a month. And within the scope of work is outreach and screening of applicants for the wait list. There'll be 2 annual updates of the wait list, and that requires contacting every one of those households that's on the wait list, some frequently multiple times, to make sure that we have their information up to date and that they want to remain on the list. Income certifications for an estimated 22 new units that will be coming online, recertifications or certifications of new tenants if they turn over for the existing units. And just there's a lot of work that goes to working with the developers when they're first bringing a building online, especially the large buildings, to help make the process go smoothly. So that's my presentation. If there are any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
All right, committee, any questions? Can you raise your hand? I don't see any questions. Oh, I do have one question. Sarah, on the 999 Howard, 1015 Howard building, the senior building, that building would not be managed by CPAP, right?
Correct.
Correct. Government.
Exactly. And that is a requirement for almost all of those properties, that they have to have their own wait lists and meet the requirements of their funders.
Right. Just, I mean, because that's a distinction I really didn't understand previously.
Yes.
So that was a very good explanation. Alderman Simmons.
Do we ever manage the list in-house? The housing wait list?
No, and actually, the staff doesn't manage it. And I got to tell you, I think it's better to not have it managed in-house. First of all, SEBA has more than one person working on this. And so when there is a lot of work going on, they have the flexibility to assign people and have it move smoothly. They also manage Highland Park and Lake Forest's waitlist. So they're really good at this. It's what they do. And it is not an easy thing to do.
Okay. And then also the properties that are on the list, are they only our inclusionary and other mandated affordable units? Can independent landlords put their properties on this list as well?
They can, but I want to make you aware of something. Most of them probably won't want to, because then they're targeting a group that is going to be below what many of them are going to want in rent, because these are, we've made requirements that they price units rental below what normally they would do. We're happy if there are people who, but it's not like when people get a voucher holder, and in the Evanston area, they use the small area rents, and those are closer to market rate. So we're happy to help people get tenants if they want to. We just want to make sure that they understand that these will be really quite low rents.
Thank you. And I mean, some people's business model is to provide affordable units, so there may be an opportunity there. And then second, in the example, family has a Section 8 voucher. Is this someone that would be on this list also? And
no, what we allow, if somebody, one of the things, you can never say that any of our IHO units could be somebody with a Section 8 tenant. So there may be people who are currently have housing choice vouchers, and they want to be able to get into inclusionary units. They can be on the list. That's okay, because we don't discriminate based on source of income. But when that happens, when you get a voucher holder going into an inclusionary unit or an income restricted unit, then the rent is negotiated between the housing authority and the landlord. That's a different situation. Yep.
So that I understand, but I mean, it's just generally difficult, even with a voucher, to find an affordable unit. So that could be an option
Yes.
for those that have vouchers to even go through that. So that's good to know.
Mhm.
Okay, that's all I have. I support it.
Thank you.
All right, anything else? All right, hearing none, could you call the roll? Ms. Snyder?
Yes. Alderman Fisk.
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Bruce Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Suffredin.
Aye.
Alderman Ravel.
Aye.
Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Thank you. And this report is going to be done twice a year. So it'll be a regular report that will be supplied to HHC and then to council.
All right, thank you very much. Ms. Snyder, we do not have any items for discussion, is that correct?
That is correct.
And we had nobody sign up to speak. And so I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. We have to call the roll.
You don't
Not
have
to,
to call the roll for that.
not for adjournment. Okay. Then we stand adjourned. See you at the council.